Mr. Chairman, Mr. Speaker, fellow delegates, and fellow Americans, I've come to this platform tonight to place in nomination for the office of President of the United States the name of Senator Eugene J. McCarthy of Minnesota. I do not speak for myself alone, but for millions of Americans who believe this man has brought new hope and new options to America. We're in the midst of what can only be called a revolution in our domestic affairs and in our foreign policy as well. And as the late President Kennedy once said, those who would make peaceful revolution impossible make violent revolution inevitable. In this time of unprecedented crisis, the nomination for the presidency is more than the selection of an able and a qualified individual for the office. We must have bold leadership willing to undertake the basic changes in our political system that are so necessary to its survival. We must seek a leader who can arrest the polarization in our society, the alienation of the blacks from the whites, the haves from the have-nots, and the old from the young. We must choose a man with the wisdom and the courage to change the direction of our foreign policy before it commits us for an eternity to a maze of foreign involvements without clear purpose or moral justification. But most of all, the man we nominate must embody the aspirations of all those who seek to lift mankind to its highest potential. He must have that rare, intangible quality that can lift up our hearts and cleanse the soul of this troubled country. Gene McCarthy is such a man. It is said that we Democrats are disunited compared to the carefully contrived spectacular in Miami Beach. But those who say it do not understand that this party is a coalition of strong and independent people with the courage of their convictions and a responsiveness to the will of the electorate. If this were not so, I would be less confident in presenting the name of the man who may not be first in the early polls of the delegates, but is unquestionably first in the hearts of the people. Out of the independence and diversity of our party, following our choice tonight, will come a stronger unity by far than the Miami Beach Union of the rubber stamp. I do not ask you to support Senator McCarthy because I feel he is the only candidate who can unify our party. I ask you to support Gene McCarthy because I believe he is the best qualified to preserve our country and to safeguard its future. Senator McCarthy, like the late Senator Kennedy, has told the people of the United States that we cannot solve the problems of today with the solutions of yesterday. Something must give. Something must change from the inflexible status quo. Vietnam is by no means the only issue, but it is the key issue, the symbolic issue. Affluent as our country is, we do not have the resources to finance the machinery of ever-escalating war, and at the same time to relieve the agony of the cities and repair the deep wounds of poverty and racism in our society. At a time when we need to have a posture of maximum strength in Europe, where our prime commitments lie, at a time when we are hard-pressed to preserve our union at home, we are increasingly committed to a civil war 8,000 miles from our homeland. The various measures that need to be taken for the orderly conclusion of that conflict have been laid out on the table by respected leaders of both parties. But the outstanding living spokesman for this position in either party in this campaign is unquestionably Senator Eugene McCarthy. He has caught the imagination of Americans in all the cities and the countryside of this vast nation. He has caused a clean wind of hope to blow across this land, hope that our country can mend its internal wounds and change from the collision course in world affairs. He has added something uniquely his own, a steely intellectual approach that says, in effect, we must think our problems through before we can see them through. He is a different kind of evangelist, an evangelist of reason. At a time when it seems that every honest difference of opinion between Americans degenerates into a shouting match, Gene McCarthy has spoken with restraint and logic, shunning the emotional appeal. But his warmth and compassion and sense of justice are implicit in the entire range of his record in public life. He has been right on labor, right on farm policy, right on health and welfare legislation, right on policies relating to the aging, right on fiscal policy, right on foreign relations. He was right when he helped sponsor the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965, and as a major architect of the 1964 tax cut, he was right again. Here is a man with a political and social philosophy that hangs together across the entire range of human needs. By his very courage and consistency, in his unwavering support of human value causes, Gene McCarthy has made the difficult look easy. But we should not let Senator McCarthy's offhand, dispassionate manner belie his great strength and great staying power. Just compare the campaigns of Senator McCarthy and Mr. Nixon. Mr. Nixon has been toiled over by his trainers, rested, tanned, and paced in a way that has set records for campaign organization and expertise. Senator McCarthy has been on the road and on the platform day after day, taking on all comers, answering all questions. He has no artificial tan, and he has shadows under his eyes, but he has a serenity that proceeds from an inner glow of strength and of conviction. As a consequence, now in late August, this tough fighter brings to his countrymen the same fresh appeal he displayed when he began his odds-on battle in the snows of New Hampshire. Here is a fighter who, starting by himself in the first primary, has won his way here as a major contender for the nomination on no man's muscle but his own. Here is a man strong enough to unite our country and wise enough to understand that we must be morally awakened first so that we know why we are united and what our true priorities are. Gene McCarthy is an intellectual, yes, but he is also a practical man who is capable of taking from history the hard lessons of survival that need to be applied to our republic in this time of crisis. I recall another great practical intellectual of American history who said this: "I had rather be shut up in a very modest cottage with my books, my family, and a few old friends, than to occupy the most splendid post which any human power can give." That practical intellectual was Thomas Jefferson, who wrote the Declaration of Independence and served as the third President of the United States. Like Jefferson, Gene McCarthy is determined to become president, but he has strong ideas about the role of the presidency. He believes the president should lead, but not completely dominate the government. In this view, he is not on a branch line, but on the main line of American political philosophy. There is no question that he is a different kind of a leader. The political world of Gene McCarthy is lean, spare, streamlined, strangely unlike the wheeler-dealer political world to which we are accustomed. Never in our political history has any major candidate for the presidency been less encumbered by deals, promises, or accommodations than Gene McCarthy. I think I understand why he refuses to make all the traditional commitments. He is saying to his own party and to the country, "I will not let you off the hook on the key issues of war and peace, of poverty and racism, whatever the cost may be to me." Let me make these points clear. Senator McCarthy has offered us a comprehensive program for rebuilding and revitalizing our domestic society. At the same time, he has pointed out that the stern corollary of this is our orderly withdrawal from the costly quicksand of our commitment in Southeast Asia. At no time has Senator McCarthy recommended unconditional withdrawal from Vietnam. At no time has he recommended any move that would deprive our fighting men of full protection or disavow our valid commitments to the people of South Vietnam or our other allies. He has voiced the concern of a nation about the direction of our escalating hardline war policies in Asia. He has insisted doggedly that there must be a disengagement from this jungle war and a rejection, in fact, of the erroneous concept that there can be a military victory in such a conflict. The miracle of our times is the way that the senator has aroused the people of America with his logical, unemotional approach. People under 25 up to now have had the poorest voting record of any age, but they have followed Gene McCarthy, and they will vote for him. Fewer than 50% of the people with incomes below the poverty level have voted up to now, but the poor have followed Gene McCarthy, and they will vote for him. Less than 1/3 of our eligible Negro voters have voted up to now, but Negroes have followed Gene McCarthy, and they will vote for him. What all of this means is that the McCarthy coalition has brought the greatest infusion of new political strength to our party in our lifetime, and this adds up to victory in November. To black and white Americans, to poor and affluent Americans, to farmers, laboring people, businessmen, housewives, and school teachers, to the favored, the disadvantaged, the handicapped, the name of Gene McCarthy means hope. Hope that the America we all love will be restored to its proper image of strength and of justice and of equality. And hope that the killing and the burning in a distant land will at last be brought to an end. In a democracy, crisis is the mother of creativity. And this is not the first crisis convention in Americans' history. The Constitutional Convention convened in 1787 under the chairmanship of George Washington was a gathering of men who were angry, men who were passionate, and men whose achievement gave life to a nation. And from that convention emerged that extraordinary collection of American leaders we call the Founding Fathers. In 1860, when this country was deeply divided over slavery, crisis again created an extraordinary leader in Abraham Lincoln. In 1932, the crisis over our very economic survival as a nation produced Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And now, once again, we are fighting for our life as a nation. And I believe that once again, crisis has created a leader in Gene McCarthy. We Democrats cannot claim to have found him. The people found Gene McCarthy for us. They found him, they follow him, they have urged him on us. He is more accurately the people's candidate than any other man in recent history. I offer you now the man with new options for America, the leader who can unite our country and assure its future. I place before you for the Democratic nomination as President of the United States the name of Senator Eugene J. McCarthy of Minnesota.